Hi, my name is Ashley Champagne, and I work for the Center for Digital Scholarship at Brown University. And I'm excited to talk to you today about digital humanities for small audiences, designing digital humanities projects with and for communities. I'm just going to share my screen here. So our center, I just wanted to explain a little bit about that. We have 7 staff who specialize in different areas, from data visualization to web applications to text mining. Here they are. And to the left, there is our mission statement at the center. So we really provide the university with expertise, services, and teaching and digital scholarship methods. And we work directly with faculty who bring research ideas, questions, interests, and we help make their that idea a reality, and we brainstorm together as partners. What I'd like to talk to you about today, in line with the conference topic on sustaining community, is how we have been partnering with communities to create our digital humanities projects. And I wanted to present these ideas not as answers, but rather to share what we've learned, and in turn learn from all of you on the work you've done with communities and digital humanities work. So the first thing is just, why do we need community partnerships in digital humanities? I think this question deserves some pause here, because several scholars have noted that digital humanities is about data a lot of times. Digital humanists seem obsessed sometimes with data. But digital humanities work is often about sharing stories in one way or another about people. And the projects themselves are often about or related to people. So, there's obviously a clear tie-in there. In Jessica Marie Johnson's Markup Bodies, Black Life Studies, and Slavery Death Studies at the Digital Crossroads in 2018, she writes about how the digital humanities are driven for data. And she questions the stability of what has been or can be categorized as data, and the uses the idea of data has been put to, and the stakes underlying data's implicit claim to stability or objectivity. One of the examples she uses in her article is the death of Neptune, as she says, a free man of color and a carpenter. And his death is described by a man named Captain John Stedman, who Jessica Marie Johnson writes, who was far from an abolitionist and offered neutral, stable, even quantifiable information about the depravity of bondage. At our Center for Digital Scholarship, we know descriptions of enslaved people from archival documents well. We have been working in partnership with Native communities in order to decolonize thousands of these sorts of neutral, stable, and even quantifiable descriptions that detail the enslavement of Indigenous people. For the past 5 years, we have worked on a project called Stolen Relations, Recovering Stories of Indigenous Enslavement in the Americas, a community-centered project that seeks to illuminate and understand the role of enslavement Indigenous peoples played in settler colonialism over time. This project is led by Professor Linford Fisher in partnership with the Center for Digital Scholarship, Center for the Study of Slavery and Justice, and Native and Indigenous Studies. The archival documents written by the colonizer are often seemingly neutral and quantitative. One of the things that we have wrestled with as we have worked with this project is this notion that we're working with all of these different archival documents written by the colonizer. How do we present these documents in a way that both helps the community reconnect with that history, potentially reconnect with people, but also we do not want to perpetuate the trauma that these documents show. An example of an archival document that we work with is here. This is a document describing a servant named Moses Williams. Moses Williams actually appears twice in our database. Both times he is self-emancipated. He is described very much in neutral terms in this document. He is described as half Indian, his father being Indian and his mother a white woman. He's also described as having two felt hats, one of them old, the other new, two coarse shirts, a country-made jacket, half white, half black, two pairs of shoes, one pair old, the other new. The archival documents written by the colonizer are often the only documentation we have about some Indigenous people who were enslaved. And a significant goal of the Stolen Relations Project is to begin to disentangle the key information contained in these documents from their oppressive colonialist assumptions. In doing so, the project attempts to balance the great value of restoring enslaved Indigenous people to the historical record on the one hand, and on the other, the risk of perpetuating colonialist ideologies through the presentation of these often troubling materials. As part of our decolonizing work, we have worked with representatives from 12 Native nations in New England in order to make the archive as accessible and useful as we can for the Indigenous community. Our work is not perfect and we welcome feedback, but we're excited to be part of this movement towards decolonizing archival documents for Indigenous communities. You can see here our form, which is also something we have worked on with our community members, and how we should take information from the given archival document and allow that information to be searchable in our database. Here too is another example of that form capturing this information. You can see here, for example, we often capture it directly from the document itself. And sometimes that means capturing information like near the river or at the end of spring for a date, or things that wouldn't ordinarily be something that's necessarily standardized or controlled, but is still important information. We needed to work with the Native community in New England to gain perspective on Indigenous enslavement and ensure that, first of all, this was a project the community wanted. We weren't sure about that. They really unanimously said they did want this project. We also wanted to ask if they would partner with us so that as we're creating the resource, they would be working and giving us feedback on the project as well. One clear piece of feedback we got early on was that the partners didn't want the site to go public without their approval and guidance. And so we agreed to do that. So I'm not showing the database today, but I will show a screenshot. One way that it has changed too is that we're working to decolonize the archival documents so that we make clear that data from the archival documents is not neutral. So what makes a good partnership? The technical team, which is the team that I lead on the project, works with the community partners once a month to get real-time feedback on the in-progress development work. Code and development work are not agnostic. We know that the ins and outs of the system matter in creating a project. A few examples of this. This is a screenshot of our database. You can see here that you can see different people that are captured in the, or that we have transcribed from the archival documents. And on the right-hand side here, there's a context bar. So copy in the context bar responds to the input by the user. So if you type in Narragansett in the field that's currently labeled tribe, you would then get information that we've worked on with our partners to describe the Narragansett Nation in their own terms, not the terms by the archival document. In turn, we've also been working with our community to determine, what where not only what should go in the copy for the sidebar, but also should the sidebar always appear? Can you click out of that? And we have decided that it should remain a permanent aspect of the search, so that somebody who's trying to look at the archival documents will also see the language that we've written with our partners to decolonize that information from the document itself. We've also learned a lot of lessons about, not just about the project itself, but working with communities. And so in addition to learning aspects of the project, like, for example, the very name of our project is also a result of our conversations. We were once called the Database of Indigenous Slavery Archive, but rather than simply make accessible the records of Indigenous people who were enslaved, we want this project to offer a decolonizing framework that highlights the 21st century impact of enslavement that's ruptured the relations of Indigenous peoples, families, and nations, in short, stolen relations. A few things we've learned in the process is that it's really important to know our institution's history with the given community we're trying to reach. So in this case, the Indigenous community, but it's also important to know the work that's going on so that we can coordinate with other units at our university in our outreach efforts, because we didn't want to send out letters of invitation to these different communities if they were also getting other letters at the same time from Brown University. So we coordinated those efforts across units here. At Brown University, we're working to repair our relationship with the Native community in a variety of ways, and stolen relations is one part of that. But it is certainly, not the only part. And community partnerships also require time investment and money. So this may be obvious, but is important to know up front. Aside from planning meetings, listening and brainstorming, the response to the partners demands really dedicated attention. So when our partners want something or think something's important, it's imperative we respond. So like any relationship, it's important we diligently listen and act on our conversations. It's also important to make sure our partners are compensated for their time. Third, though, we also need to deliver on what we promise. And so a lot of times that means avoiding a scope creep. So if we respond to what the community partners offer us, we need to have a work plan that states what we can commit to. And that may change the individual projects that we do, but we try to organize our future work so that it doesn't take more time than we originally planned, because it's important to make sure we deliver on what we promise. So we're still learning. I'm looking forward to our conversation here at DLF on engaging partnerships from the community. Thank you so much for having me, and yeah, look forward to talking more.